Hi, and welcome to the Rune Radio podcast. I have here with me Torna Braggison, who is very active on Substack, writes fantastic articles, and writes fantastic poetry also about the gods and Asatru and heathenry. And that is, of course, a very good reason to have him on here and to talk a bit about it, really. Um, Torna, I got to meet you through Substack. I can't remember specifically, but I do remember that I very quickly started to follow you. I forgot which of one of us followed who first, but you write beautiful pieces on the gods, and you are a genuine person when it comes to heathenry and Asatru. Um, so I want to ask you a couple of questions just to start off. Like, how many or how long ago was it that you got interested in heathenry, and what was it specifically that drew you in?
Oh, this is a rather easy question, I suppose. For me, I was raised in a very Irish family, and I was raised to have pride in who I was and where I came from. Grew up, with mythological stories and my grandmother telling me of Brian Boru on her knee, and all these things made these connections for me to the folk, to the people, and to who I was. And as I got a little bit older, I had some troubled years. Where I was a skinhead during the '80s. I got in a ton of trouble. I did a bunch of negative stuff, that wasn't helping anything. And then I found Asatru, and as a teenager, I started practicing. Like many people, from probably a very Christian perspective, it takes a long time to shed off those shackles that we're raised with. But after some years, I reached out to Valgard Murray, of the founder of the Asatru Alliance, and he was just such a warm guy, so charismatic, so true, right? He's just one of these people that had just this very spiritual feeling about him, and he put me at ease, and that's where it all started. I started the kindred with my family, just my wife and three children when they were young, and now we're looking at about 30 members, and I'm trying to spin off kindreds from here because it's getting to be too much, right? It's just too hard to be close with 30 people at the same time, right? And for me, I think, everyone can set their own kindred the way they like. But for me, 12 voting members of a kindred is about as big as you want it. At 12 members, everyone can be tight with each other. Once it gets beyond that, people seem to start naturally going into their own little cliques. And you have three or four over here and three or four over there, and they're not really coming together the way that you want them to. So, but Asatru has been something that is, just slowly crept into my life and into the forefront for me, especially as I've gotten older, having kids, and now, grandkids on the way. And uh, in my older years, I've become much more spiritual, much more in tune with what's going on around me. And it seems like I kind of just fell to a place. Like there was a puzzle missing a piece, and I was that piece. And even though I didn't necessarily seek out, like the position that I'm in now, it kind of has just fallen on me, and it's really been good. It's really been a positive thing in my life. I certainly wouldn't give it up for anything.
No, we talked about this a bit earlier before we started recording, but it is often so, and I found this to be true for the most genuine of people, is that the it comes to you, the titles, let's say, like Gothi, for instance. There's a lot of people that call themselves all sorts of things on the internet, but it is it is only ever meaningful when other people start calling you that without you having to give them the prompt like I am this or I am that, because then you know it's real.
Yeah.
It comes from a different place. It doesn't come imposed from the top. Let's say it's really grassroots. Um, and about you said about your background. What was it then about the North Germanic gods specifically that drew you in and not the Celtic gods?
So, being honest, first I was drawn to the Celtic side of things. And I started looking out and reaching out as a young guy, probably, 14 or 15 years old, some 35 years ago. But what I found there was not what I was looking for. What I found there was, some ultra leftists, men wearing dresses, women wearing pants type of deal. And yeah, it just wasn't for me. And as much as I looked, I could not find any kind of Celtic based groups that were, what I was looking for. Now, that being said, even with my extremely thick Celtic background, there's quite a bit of Norse and Scandinavian, Norse and Germanic influence there. My grandmother, for instance, her maiden name was Mactorhilbrak, which is a son in the image of Thor. Recently, actually, I did one of those, DNA tests and found out that, I'm about a quarter or maybe a little more Germanic, when I never would have known that really, because everything in my background is Irish and Scotch with a very small amount of English, which I suspect pretty much all of us Irish and Scotch have a small amount of English in there. Um, so it kind of drew me in that way as well. And, maybe only 25 or 30% of me is Germanic, but, in my way of looking at it at this point, I really believe that more than anything else in Europe, the Celts and the Germanics are intrinsically linked, through cultural customs, through places, through lands. I mean, how many nations were what are now nations were originally, tribes of Celts and Germans living in the same places at the same time. I think that there was probably quite a lot of influence from both on one another, which we see in the archaeological records, right? I mean, there's quite a bit over in, say, the Orkneys and, even Ireland and Scotland that is actually dedicated back to, Norse and Germanic gods. So I I don't see it myself as any kind of a betrayal, which is something that I really had to have a good long think about. And it's one of those things, I think it took me a long time to truly invest myself, to truly give myself to the ancestors and the gods in this, you know, specific, folk way, right? Uh, what I have done though is, again, I don't want to disrespect my own ancestors or even the gods of my own ancestors. And, as heathens and pagans, the fact that Odin exists doesn't mean that Lu doesn't, right? So instead of following, say, the spiritual pathway of the Irish Celtic, I'm following the spiritual pathway of the Scandinavian, but I still worship my ancestors. I still worship those Celtic ancestors. I still will hail those Celtic gods once every other year during winter finding here at the Kindred, because we have so many Irish folk. We will actually do a bloat that's dedicated to Lu. I don't necessarily think this is wrong. I think it's much harder to be an eclectic pagan and look at multiple different paths and try to discern which way to go and what's right and wrong. I think that's harder. And I think that, choosing this one path has allowed me to see things in a much clearer view. So that's kind of how I ended up where I am.
It harkens to the saying, you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you came from. I think that's true. And I once heard Freya Aswin mention this, that there is an actual word for that, that you just intrinsically know something about yourself that you have no way of knowing, like, for instance, ancestry. And that relates to how you probably chose the Scandinavian Germanic gods. And I forgot the word in German, but in English it translates to the bloodlight. So the knowing of the blood. I think epigenetic memory is another word for it. A little bit less esoteric,
Mm.
maybe, but that I have experienced as well. I should probably do a DNA test too, because just to prove a few things to myself, whether that is also true for me, would be very interesting to know. Um,
It is an odd thing. Like for me, you know, one side of my family just came over here to America 1 generation ago, and we're from County Cork, and they were in County Cork forever. Like I can't find any family outside of Cork when I look back in that line. On the other side of my family, my father was mostly Scottish, and his family came here directly on the Mayflower. The house I grew up in was built in 1780, and the woman that we descend from, Mary Chilton, was supposedly the first woman to set foot off of the Mayflower into Plymouth.
wow.
She's a big deal in the whole pilgrim mythos. And another really neat point about that is that she was a famous artist, and all of her paintings still hang today in the Plymouth Pilgrim Museum, which is kind of cool.
I'm gonna look that
Um,
up. I'm interested
but
in.
yeah, I mean, I always knew about my background, right? So for me, it was like, well, why do I need to do a DNA test? I already know that I'm almost all Irish and I have some Scottish, right? And but my wife was adopted and didn't know about one side of her family, and really wanted to know what she was. So I did it with her so that she didn't have to do it alone, and I actually found out something neat myself. I was aware of the last names, like my grandmother's last name and some of the other last names that are in my background that kick back to Anglo-Irish or Scandinavians that became Gallicized and moved into Ireland and things like that. But I never would have guessed that my percentages would have been as large as they are. When I'm talking about, like said, 25 or 30% of mixed, like Danish, Northern Germanic, a little bit of Swedish. It's like it's very interesting. Even more so that I was pulled in the direction of the gods the way I have been, to find this was like, well, that's actually really, really neat. These guys I'm a lot closer related to the gods than I realized, or to the folk, to the ancestors. So
Well, I've said this a few times on my own Substack, that I truly believe that all peoples all over the world are the spiritual children of their respective gods. And I think that for all people, I think that for Africans, I think that for Europeans, Asian people, and to an extent
yep.
also certain Abrahamic branches, for good or bad.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense for sure. I agree with you completely. And with the alliance, right, we are a very kind of middle of the road organization, where we're not extremely right wingers, and we're not extremely left wingers. In fact, we have completely outlawed politics within our spirituality, but we are folkish, so that has automatically put us in the bad guy camp for a long time, and we've had to fight being doxxed and all kinds of other stuff over the years. That being said, I also have a lot of people that will reach out to me. In my position as the vice president of the board of directors on the alliance, I field a lot of the outside as well as the inside questions or queries from people. So I'll have people, that are of, African or Asian or some other than European descent reach out to me with interest in the gods. And I always try to point them back in the direction of their own gods, and not in an insulting way, right? But either you're one of us or you aren't. And if you're going to take part in a religion or spirituality that, you know, is hyper focused on your ancestry and your people, it doesn't make any sense to say bring in that Asian guy because he feels close to Odin.
Yeah.
Now, to me, if that guy wants to worship Odin in his own house, you can do what you want. It's not hurting me, and it's definitely not hurting Odin, right? Um, but we don't bring those kind of folks in. But I do try to help them, and I do still try to, you know, show respect for people. So there's been a lot of people through the years that I've kind of led back to their own ancestral path, and to me that's a win. You know, specifically there was some African guys who reached out to me, and I found out where they were from and found out a little bit about the gods from that area. And these guys were really interested in Thor, right? So I found within their own background a god that lined up very similar to Thor, which is not surprising, right? And as soon as I brought it back to these guys, you know, they came back a couple weeks later and they're like, you know, thanks. This was awesome. And they're wearing the necklaces with that god symbol on it. And I'm like, you know, there we go. Right. That's a win, you know? So it's, yeah, it's been a funny ride to say the least. And, the hardest part I think about what we do is putting out there in a positive way and not, you know, drawing attack. Cause I could have very easily handled that in a different way. I could have put them off and shirked them off and been an asshole, right? But what would that have gotten me? You know, bad reputation, people gunning for me, and for what? Because I love my own culture and ancestors, you know? So it's it's a really neat thing. And I think I'm in a very perfect position to help people find the right things, I think sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely an all around win, I would say, because this is just a thought that I have often, that indeed, like, you can have like your blood to Lu and everything, um, because you have these people in your own lineage. I mean, these people live together also for a very long time, but somebody from a culture from the all other end of the world who had much greater hostilities with each other or with us, let's say, over the past, like the spirits that are attached to these beliefs. I think that is an often overlooked thing that may clash very much, that may actually not be beneficial for anybody involved. But I do think it is a very kind thing that you did to point them to their own gods and then find something very similar in their own ancestral beliefs, because I think it is also to their own benefit. I think it is much healthier for people to stick to their own ancestral paths instead of something that you have basically no genetic connection to, because where's the bloodline going to come from then? um, it cannot be
Yeah.
quantified at all. um,
Yeah.
so there is always the danger of spiritual delusions, and that comes with its own set of problems. I'm not going to reflect on the people that are in contact with people like that. It's always a bit of a delicate situation. I think it's definitely a very kind thing that you did, and I have no problem either with people from other cultures taking an interest in Odin or Thor or Freya. I think that's wonderful. I think it's great that you have an interest, because the interest can be mutual for me too. I can have an interest, although academically
Oh yeah.
an interest, but I'm not going to involve myself in those practices.
So I would like to tell you a small story. And what I did for these guys was done for us. So I'm sure you're going to be familiar with these names, but a very long time ago, when Asatru was just starting in the United States, Valgard Murray and Stephen McNallen, who were blood brothers and started everything together, went out to an American Indian powwow because they wanted to learn more about, indigenous religions and spiritualities. And they got there and they were at the powwow and, walking around buying little things. But when it came time for ritual, um, one of the American Indians took him to the side and said, you can't come to ritual. And, they had asked him why. And he basically gave them the same thing that I just gave the African guys. And we're like, well, listen, man, these are our gods. These are our ancestors, and these are special to us. We do not bring in outsiders. And he said, you should look into your own background. You should look into your own ancestry, because he happened to have a interest in Celtic and Nordic mythology as well. And that's kind of where those two really got started, to bring about Asatru in the United States. This is probably in the, I want to say, late 60s or early 70s, right at the beginning. After that, L.C. Christensen came over and started L.C. Christensen's Odinist Fellowship. Valgard's Arizona Kindred was the very first kindred of Asatru in the United States. And from there, they started the original AFA. So the rest is all history. But I find it very interesting that these, American Indians kind of had a hand in pushing us in the right direction. And I think that's a very cool thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. That's well, it's cool, and it's also a beautiful thing because it comes from a place of compassion. It doesn't come from a place of exclusion per se. It's for your own spiritual safety as well, let's say, because these spirits, it can be so underestimated what type of influence they can have on a person. And I see this a lot with people that get into traditions that they have no connection to whatever, and they go completely insane. And I think that is because of the spirits involved with those ancestors, those gods, are just not compatible with your own hardware, with your own
And
DNA.
could possibly be even hostile.
Yes. Mm, yeah. Mm, I think so. Yeah. So, I mean, when you first started out, did you? I mean, you had your influences that heavily inspired you. Was it hard to find in general, or did you really have to go look for people or organizations?
So I really had to go look because, especially when I was a young guy, there was no internet, right? Yeah, people didn't have cell phones on their hips yet. And, even speaking to that, it's amazing that they were able to do what they did, and reach out to all the people that they did back in the 80s, in the 70s and 60s, when all this was really kicking off. But no, I had to work hard. And I found the Alliance through Vortru magazine, of which now I've been a writer for about 10 years, and kind of saw the advertisement for All Thing, the historic All Thing, coming together of the kindreds of Vinland. And, as a young guy, I saw that and I always thought, man, it would be awesome to go to that. Right. And after enough years, I grew a set of balls, so to speak, and reached out by phone, because Valgard always had a hardline phone in his World Tree office, and I got started from there. But it was very difficult, and especially finding members,
Mm.
right? Because where do you find members? Everything had to be done organically. It was all, your friends, your families, friends of friends, or people hear about what you're doing by reputation and reach out to you. But it was much more difficult than what we have now. As much as I kind of hate the internet in a way, and I've stayed away from it my whole life. The Substack is my first social media ever, only social media. Um, I would I've always been wanting to do everything in the real world, right? And as somebody who grew up without that stuff, I saw the internet as being unnecessary for me. I don't need the internet to swing my hammer every day, or be a good dad, or do all the normal things I do in my life. But about a year ago, my wife started getting on me, and she's like, your writing has come such a long way. Your influence has come such a long way within our organizations, and you really should get it out there. And I'm supposed to be having a book put together about all my work into the soul lore. So I'm like, well, all right. Between her and I have some friends over at the Theodish group, the Windland Rice, and they're pretty big, and they've been publishing through Substack for a long time. So they suggested Substack, and it's been a good thing. I've had a lot of good reach out, and I've been on here for a year. And in that year, like Bran from Sunhearth has been working hard to become a member of our kindred. And I just put in a letter for him today with the board of directors to start his own Sunhearth kindred. The guy that runs the channel, Ark, has actually come out to bloat here on the property a couple of times and is looking to come out again. I've connected with the gentleman from Woden'skin over in England, and I've largely been able to take these things off of the internet and be like, all right, guys, let's do something. Let's not just talk. Let's have ritual. Let's have a feast day. Let's, meet up and do something in the real. And it's really been awesome. I am very amazed at the amount of positive meetings that I've had here, and being able to take it offline. So I'm trying to use it as a tool, what it was meant to be used for, right? Instead of living my life here in the matrix, so to speak. I'm always like, fuck Substack guys, come on out to bloat, right? Like I've invited a few people from far and away. Even I have a woman coming from, I think she's about 1,500 miles or so away from us, down south, the girl from Taste of Truth. I'm sure you're familiar with her.
Yes.
Her and her husband are looking to come up here next month for Freyfaxy. So like these have been great things. And, even being able to connect with you like we are right now, and I see the big smile on your face and I feel the same smile on mine. It's like, here's that connection again, right? And maybe you're very far away, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities that Torna Braggison could be in your neighborhood soon. And we end up meeting out because I'm down there in Southern Europe somewhere. So I really think that what we're doing is a positive thing.
Yeah, and it matters more when you are able to take it offline, because online is still just online. It can very quickly become a hug box, or something even less positive than that. I mean, it can very quickly become a place of venting, and I really try not to do that with my Substack. I just try to do that with my own personal Substack. I'm just here to share what I know, but I'm not going to do it for free. That's an unfortunate thing, maybe for some people. I've been called names because of it, but something for something else. I cannot just say everything that I know for nothing. Imagine the amount of damage that would do to people that want something for nothing. That's just not how those things work, in my opinion, and in my experience also.
I think that even in the ancient days, if you were to go to a vulva, you would have had to offer something, right? I would think it would always been a gift for a gift. Nothing is free, so I don't see a problem with that myself. And honestly, I've been thinking about, turning the payment on my Substack. I don't necessarily think I'm going to put my articles behind the paywall, but I may do some other stuff. But if I could take that, like you said, and for me, we have this kindred land now, and it's not a huge piece of land. It's about 6 acres. So it's sizable enough. We have our dedicated ritual circle here. I would love to build a Hoff and a mead hall, kind of next to that circle, because here it's 30 below zero in the winter. And, people love to go out during Yule and sit around the fire. You are not going to do that here. It is just plain too freaking cold. So having a good spot to be able to go in the winter, and also having a spot that could be used for the Alliance and other heathens in general to be able to come visit, I think it would be a great thing. So hey, for me, I'm thinking if I can do that and put that towards the building of this hall, it would be a great thing. And like you said, I'm not necessarily giving everything away for free either, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you use funds like that, it's and if you are open about it, like, look, I put on my subscriptions because every amount of money I make on here, I want to put that into something in the real world. I think I'm pretty confident you would find supportive people with that, because there is a craving for it. And I've noticed that people really want this, because we've not been able to have it. It's basically been stolen from us for all sorts of reasons. It's not just Christianity. I know it's an easy finger to point, but it wasn't just that. It was a whole array of things, really. But I did want to ask this: when you first started to do this with the land, or even way in the past with the original Asatru group that you belonged to, was there any opposition to it at all? Or during the time of the Satanic Panic, was there like
Yes. So
opposition?
quite a bit,
Yeah.
quite a bit. And, for myself, yeah, back in the early days, I always kept it to myself, and it wasn't something that I spread out in public. That I was, an Asatruer. And I grew up in the Boston area, which, you know, now is very secular, but was always a Irish and Italian Catholic community. North side of Boston is Italian, and the south side is Catholic, and that's what it was. And if you're doing anything different than that, then you're devil worshiping.
Mm.
Um, but during the Satanic Panic, like Valgard had two assassination attempts on his life. He'd been swatted multiple times where people called the cops and said like he committed a murder or whatever. And, the whole SWAT team shows up at this poor guy's house at 2 a.m. He's sleeping in there with his 5 daughters, you know. Um, we've had a ton of opposition through the years, but as of late, say the last 20 years, at least anyways, it's gone way downhill as people have become more secular and less rooted in, the kind of Abrahamic beliefs or any beliefs really. There's been a lot less. So it's been a good thing.
Yeah. And was there any particular angle that it came from the most, or was it really, was it seemingly random, or was it targeted from specific groups?
I think that most of the trouble we had was from specific groups, and believe it or not, most of them were right wing Christian fundamentalists. So it's funny to me because they share at least some of our politics, and beliefs, but they absolutely hate us. Right? We're devil worshippers. You know the thought to them: anything that isn't Christian, God is the devil.
Yeah.
Everything's the devil. It makes me think of Adam Sandler's movie The Waterboy, where his mom's always like, "Football's the devil. Everything's the devil." It's a very uneducated view to me. It's not a good way to look outward. And if your spirituality commands you to attack other people's spiritualities, to me, that's not much of a religion.
It's more politics, I would say. I would call that politics, using religion as a tool to accomplish something.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a very rigid group, I would say. I haven't had many run-ins with them, but I had a couple commenting here and there on my YouTube, and there is absolutely zero willingness to even talk. They will talk at you, not with you. And that's always a sign for me, like, I'm not going to waste my time with these people. I'm not going to try to explain anything to these people. it's just into the black
Fuck.
hole of forgetfulness. Second, right. Get myself some
I've
water.
only had one like that come from the internet. About a year ago, I had a kid reach out to me, and he must have been under the impression that I was a young man because he told me that my children were going to be baptized in my blood and, all kinds of crazy stuff, like get Christian curses on me. And I laughed at him. I'm like, well, my kids are already adults. I'm getting ready for grandkids. So I think that you're talking to the wrong guy. And I just blocked him. Like, when I get a lot of that bad action now, especially online, to me, I'm not there to argue with people. I'm not there to push politics. I'm there, like you said, to put out what I know and how I feel for people who want to read it. If you don't want to read it, don't fucking read it. Right. And when I read things that I don't agree with, maybe I might comment respectfully, but I've never gone on and tried to like attack, another person. If I don't like what they're writing, then I just don't read it. Right. It's, you're never going to change people's minds that way. You're never going to affect anything good by calling somebody names or trying to attack their personality, their spirituality, or any of those things. So I've always just stayed away from it. And yeah, I don't think of myself as the toughest man in the world, but I am an honorable person. And if one of these such folks spoke to me that way in the real world, I'd break their fucking leg. But from behind the computer screen, they tend to get really tough. And I see that as dishonorable. To incite fights from somebody from a safe place, right? Oh well, I can say whatever I want because you can't get me here. Just a very dishonorable way to carry yourself.
Yes, and I often wonder if that has some spiritual origin to begin with, because that is the typical I'm going to I'm going to want a reaction out of you type of thing. And I have had people do that to me as well, and in very underhanded ways, write entire hit pieces on me, and never, not once, except maybe less than a handful of times, I have never even acknowledged those people, because I think that is part of it. This is just, you cannot be dragged to that level. You just keep on doing what you do. Don't
Right.
mind these people unless they're right in your face, doing something or about to do something. They don't exist. And I think that is absolutely
Right.
the best approach. Reserve your energy for things that actually matter. And these people don't matter at the end
Right.
of the
They're
day.
trying to get you mad, and I'm laughing at them. Right.
Mm. Which is very interesting, because if these people do have spiritual attachments, I think it is Buddhists that say this, that you have to laugh at demons, and that immediately pulls the rug from under their feet. And that's generally true in my experience.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Now,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. About your the group and the rituals that you do on your land, are is it generally, it's like the Aesir and the Vanir, um everything, all the gods, and no one is excluded, or do you have gods that are more specific to your rituals, and that you dedicate most of your time to, or even a patron god, would you say?
so we spend a lot of time venerating Freya, Ingvi Frey, which it makes a lot of sense for us out here. We're farming, we're raising animals, we're raising families, and to me that kind of is a very Freya thing. I don't know if I would exactly call him our patron, but probably something close to that. Most of our time is spent on ancestors, though. We spend a lot of time, and this is part of my own spiritual progression, venerating Alfar and Disir, right? Because when you start out, you look at Asatru from the lens of religion that you grow up with. So then you're kind of just switching out the Christian gods for the Norse gods, and it becomes this thing where it's all about Odin or it's all about Thor. And while Odin and Thor are great and powerful gods, spirits, they're not the end all be all of the religion, and it would not have been the focus of our ancestors, right? The focus would have been on the ancestors, the Alpha, the Disir, the Landvetter. These are the things that I've really tried to bring to the forefront. So, like next month when Freyfaxi comes around, we don't hold bloat to Freyr, we hold an Alfar bloat. And to me, this makes perfect sense, right? Freyr rules over the Alfar. So what better way to get a message to to Freyr than through the Alf? So I think that again, through time, it's definitely evolved for me, but we spend a lot of time working on ancestors and each other. Like one of the things that I've introduced within the last 5 years or so is that when I run Sumbul now, and I don't mean like sitting around the kitchen table Sumbul, but like a formal Sumbul out at the circle, I do the last round for the folk, and I, try to incite everyone to, hail each other, those living people in your life, those people in the circle, your moms, your dads, your brothers, those people that love you and support you. And I think that this is probably one of the last pieces for me that I've really put together, is that it's not just about the dead, right? It's not just about the ancestors. It's also about your living family. It's about your living kin, your friends, the people who love you, and making that a part of our practice has really gone a long way to bringing everyone in together. Gifting is another big thing that has over the last few years really become a big part of our Sumbul. Like during that round of Sumbul, when we're hailing the folk, is usually when I take the time to give out gifts, whether it's a ritual necklace that I've made for somebody, or at this last midsummer bloat, Bran was out there from Sunhearth, and I knew he wanted to start his own kindred, so I gifted him a oath ring for his altar, and I gifted him a green and gold kilt because that's his colors. So it's a really awesome thing, right? And you give him this great gift, and he's like, "Wow, who made the oath ring?" And I said, "That was our kindred's very first oath ring." There is a lot of power in that ring. There has been a lot of oaths made on that ring and completed on that ring. And for me, it was about giving him something not something profane, but something truly spiritual, something that already had, some power in it to help him get his feet off the ground. And like, you can't measure the amount of goodwill, reciprocity, friendship, and all these things that you bring out when you treat people in this way, right? When you treat people with respect and support those people through gift and through word, like, it allows a closeness, I think, that a lot of kindreds don't find. And I've been around the block and I've seen a lot of kindreds, and I'm not knocking anybody either, or saying again that like we're the greatest thing that's ever happened. This is just where we happen to be right now. I do think though that if we take these things that we're speaking about, we take the ancestors, we take the folk, we take the gift giving, we take all these things and we start putting them together, and our spirituality starts to look a lot more full. It starts to look a lot more, like something that you can follow and dedicate yourself to, right?
Well, I think that was an absolute beautiful and perfect note to end the first segment on. Um, I propose that we take a break here, and we'll see each other again on the second half. That's only going to be on Substack for my subscribers. Torna, thank you so much for being here. You've really answered all the questions that I wanted to ask you in this first segment, and much more. I will definitely put all your links, well, your Substack link in the description so people can find you there. Definitely go check out his work. And may you walk with the gods.
Thanks, Tina. Appreciate it.